Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all in this truth from elder well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. Unto you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. And I'm going to entitle this one, These People Are About to Really Crash Out. Because we see how people on the earth, but mainly here in America, which is Babylon the Great in the scriptures, have been crashing out, especially after the 2020 ordeal, where people were offing themselves, deleting themselves, deleting their entire family member, because maybe they either lost their career, their job, they lost all their money in the stock market, or their wife divorced them. You got people that aren't able to make ends meet. So what are they doing? They're offing themselves. You got people complaining, even though they have jobs and high paying careers, they still can't make ends meet, because ultimately this system, this Edomite system, dollar-based system, it's all being collapsed. It's a controlled demolition to make way to that new digital currency system, where if you don't have the MOTB, which is the RFID microchip, which is right around the corner, it's about to be made mandatory upon the whole planet Earth, you're not going to be able to participate in this new system. You're not going to be able to have a job, a career. And when that time comes, when the self-proclaimed white man Esau Edom flips that system, when he flips that switch, and all these people's jobs, careers, bank accounts, stock market portfolios, assets, when it's all wiped away, people are really going to crash out. When all these supply chains shut down and there's no food in the grocery stores, there's no water, there's no electricity, that's when people are really going to show their true colors. So we see the demons on these people now, but it's only going to get worse. They're really going to show their true colors when all hell breaks loose. And in that movie, The Dark Knight, the Joker, he goes into that. The Joker goes into that, how society, it's all fake. It's all an illusion, because if you was to take these people's food away, their bread and circus, their necessities, they're really going to show their true colors, and that's what we're about to see. So this is Luke 23:31, and it reads, "For if they do these things in the green tree, what shall be done in the dry?" So right now we're in a quote-unquote green tree. Everything's quote-unquote normal. Nothing really hasn't popped off yet, but everything's brewing behind the scenes. The economic collapse, the collapse of the U.S. dollar, the collapse of the supply chain, where there's going to be a drought, and all the goods that people are accustomed to buying on a daily basis, weekly basis, going to the grocery store, getting a cart full of food, vegetables, fruits, that's all about to be done away with. And if you see people crashing out right now, because of the high prices, inflation, people losing their jobs, people complaining about what's the point of working and if it's not going to pay off, what are they going to do in the dry? When there's really no food in the grocery stores, when there's no water, no electricity, no Netflix and Instagram to distract these people. No TikTok. These people are gonna bug the hell out, and we already seen a preview of that just off the TikTok being shut down, for a couple days. These people were calling 911. They were crashing out. So what are they gonna do when they can no longer turn to the internet, to the matrix, to disassociate from reality? A lot of people are gonna off themselves. These social media influencers, these people who are accustomed to eating 10 times a day, especially here in America. These people are going to be resorting to cannibalism. They're going to be eating their dogs, their children. But if these people are crashing out now, how much more when all hell breaks loose, when the economy collapses? This is Matthew chapter 24 and verse 12. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So right now, iniquity is abounding. Sin on sin. People is turning colder and colder towards each other. And the 2020 ordeal, the C-19, the pandemic, the shutdown, that sped it up even more, because people were already on edge, before 2020. But once that shutdown happened, people were forced indoors, to face themselves. People were buying Bibles and quote unquote turning to God, seeking God. But then what happened when everything opened back up? When the quarantine was over, people were, turned back to being demons. To resulting to back on their bullshit, and it's only gotten worse and worse since 2020. So now people are at the point where they're on edge. You can't offend them, or they're willing to off you, to shoot you, stab you, whatever. And with all these mass layoffs and jobs being taken by AI, so on and so forth, these companies downsizing and firing their entire workforce, people not getting their pensions, their 401ks. People are building up, deep hatred, deep anger, not just towards the system, but towards their fellow neighbor. Because here in America, Babylon the Great, everybody's divided. You got Republicans versus Democrats. You got left versus right. You got juiced up people versus juiced up people. You got people fighting just because they go, they rooting for this sports team. And, this is the land of the not United States of America. And it's really about to show in the very near future. This is Matthew chapter 10 and verse 34. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. So, like these Christians and these people in the world love to claim, JC Christ, he's all love. He doesn't hate. No, Yahushai, Shai Shai, he's not sending the spirit of peace and safety upon the planet Earth. No, Shai Shai is stirring up the minds of these people in the world. He's stirring up the minds of these 2/3 Israelites, which are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, to be ready to bug out and crash out. Because Shai is not coming back. Shai is not coming back to give out hugs and lollipops and to tell everybody that it's going to be okay. No, all hell's on the verge of breaking loose. These people are on the verge of offing each other, taking each other's goods, including families. And we already seen a preview of that during the 2020 ordeal. Families were forced, to be amongst each other's when they weren't used to it. And what were they doing? Domestic violence cases went up. You know, people are off in their own families and off in their father, their mother. You know, the father off in their children and son off in their mother. You know, so on and so forth. So it's only going to ramp up more and more in these upcoming times. Especially, you know, with the famine that's right around the corner. You know, the internet shutting down, the grid going down. Verse 35, for I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Verse 36, and a man's foes shall be they of his own household. And there you go. These families that are quote unquote, oh yeah, we love each other, you know, we're very tight. Their true colors are really about to show, you know, how much love, quote unquote love, these people have for each other. Ultimately, the only ones who are, you know, really in bond and close to each other are the remnant and the elect. You know, the rest of these people in the world that think that, oh yeah, this is my best friend, I've been knowing him for 20 plus years, you know, we went to college together and now we work at the same company. Man, when there's no food in the grocery stores, when these people's backs are touching their stomachs, when all hell is breaking loose, man, these people are really about to show how much love they really have for each other. This is 2nd Ezra 15 and verse 14. And it reads, woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Verse 15, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And that modern day sword is the gun. There's going to be a civil war, because when all these institutions, governments get shut down, people are not going to care about no law enforcement and mayors and governors and presidents. You know, people aren't going to care when there's no food in the grocery stores, when there's no jobs, and, you know, the grid's shut down. People are going to be on survival mode. And what's the main thing that keeps people alive is food and water. And if these people don't have access to food and water like they're used to, what are they going to do? They're going to go from house to house, you know, store to store, wherever they can seek some food. Verse 16, for there shall be sedition amongst men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princesses, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So these people are not going to care about law enforcement. They're not going to care about, you know, their fellow neighbor. You know, howdy neighbor. No, those days they're about to be done away with. You know, all this, oh hey neighbor, you know, you come to the barbecue and kick it. No, these people are going to be like, to hell with it. You know, we don't have food, we don't have water. You know, we need food, we need water. How are we going to survive without food and water? They're going to take it from each other during during the Civil War, during, you know, these times that we're in the midst of. But yet these people, you know, they're not paying attention. They don't care. That's why Yahweh Shem Yahushua is going to hit these people hard, because here in America, Babylon the Great is known as the city of unwalled villages. You know, where people care without care, where people think nothing's ever going to pop off. So when it finally pops off, people are going to be like, man, why is this happening? Because majority of Americans, of Babylonians, they're not prepping. You know, here you have the doomsday preppers, you know, the Canadian preppers, Southern preppers. They're at least preparing, you know, for what's about to happen. Well, what are majority of Americans doing? Worried about the bread and circus, you know, still playing around. You know, worried about the World Cup, worried about their next vacation. Verse 17, a man shall desire to go into the city and shall not be able. You know, shutdown 2.0. You know, you already have these governments talking about an energy shutdown, energy conservation, because with the Strait of Hormuz being closed, that's leading to the countries on the other side of the world, the Japan, the Koreas, the Vietnams, the Philippines. If that fuel is not if that fuel is not coming into the country like it is used to, that's going to lead to a lack of fuel, which is going to lead to prices going up. It's going to lead to shutdowns. You can't drive your car. You can't go here. You can't fly. That's eventually going to come here to America. Martial law. You can't go to the city. And eventually it's going to come to the point where if you don't have that MOTB, the RFID microchip, you won't be able to enter into a city, to those 15-minute cities. Verse 18, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Yeah, these Americans are proud as all hell. They're in that mindset of nothing's ever going to happen. Oh, the war over there in the Middle East, that's just going to blow over. What does that have to do with me? When here, they just passed the automatic selective service registration. Eventually that draft for the Third World War is going to come. And reality is going to hit these people in the face when they least expect it. Verse 19, a man shall desire, or a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, with the gun, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So that's why these people are really going to bug the hell out, for the lack of bread, for the famine, no food, no water. That's why these Americans haven't revolted and haven't tried to overthrow their government, because as long as you give them bread and circus, as long as you give them access to McDonald's, food stamps, hot Cheetos, Netflix, these people are going to keep moving the way they are, recklessly, carelessly, like there's nothing going on, crashing out over, rent went up, okay. Fast food price went up, okay. But what are they going to do when there's no food, when there's no water? People are going to really crash out and show their true colors. They're going to resort to cannibalism. They're going to resort, to offing their neighbors, taking their goods. And these are the times we're in, and it's right around the corner. But that's pretty much the point. I pray that this was edifying unto the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from and who grew well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. Unto you I say Shalom.